Welcome back to the channel and welcome to our review of the 2-pack 6 milliamp hour battery and dual charger replacement set for the Craftsman drill set.
Oh no, I'm sorry. ANTRobut. ANTRobut. That's the brand. It's one of the all-time weirdest, stupidest brand name. I mean, that's crazy. You must have some kind of obscure website where you seek out these obscure Chinese brand. It has to be Chinese, like a Chinese branded weird name for this brand. I'm sorry, but this brand name needs to be savaged. It just needs to be.
Keith, I understand, and I do have a website that I find these devices on.
All right, spill the beans then. What's the secret website you're finding all these silly brands on?
Well, Keith, it's called Amazon.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I'm not surprised. So I think I know the answer to this, but I have to ask it anyway. Why? Why would you, this is a silly question. Why would you actually not get a Craftsman branded battery? Why would you go for some off-brand replacement battery?
Keith, I actually do truly have a good excuse this time. So my Craftsman 19.2 volt drill and tool set that I have is actually old enough that Craftsman no longer makes batteries for it. So they make it for the newer ones, but not one that old.
Okay, yeah. Well, I guess I'll let you slide. Although, you know, Craftsman was only ever a brand. So we're complaining about brands, about a company that was only ever a brand. I guess what I'm saying is that Craftsman never made batteries, actually. They just stuck their name on other people's batteries. And for that matter, I think Craftsman, although I have a lot of respect for Craftsman as a brand historically, I will say that. But they never made anything. They always only put their names on other people's stuff. But anyway, I'm going to let it slide.
So why don't you slide? I do appreciate that, Keith. And I already know what your next question is going to be. Why this particular brand?
You know, you sparked a memory for me from like 30 years ago, which is a big deal for me because, as you know, my memory is very bad. But when I was in college, I was at Triangle Fraternity at Michigan State University, in the engineering fraternity. And I found an old coping saw that was in the I don't know, the mechanics room, or right next to the cook's kitchen. We had a tool chest. And there was an old coping saw that was so rusted out, I could barely make out the word Craftsman on it, but I could barely see it. So I actually took it to the Sears store at Frandor Plaza. This was back in the early 90s. And I said, hey, I've got a coping saw that doesn't work. It's a Craftsman. Give me a new one. And they did. They did. They just said, yeah, okay. And I asked them, okay, so how do I get the new one? They just said, just go over there by the coping saws and just pick out a new one. It was so simple. I was literally shocked. So I think that's part of why I respected the Craftsman brand. But I must say that I think I can guess why you didn't get a Craftsman replacement battery. One, they don't have that policy, that unlimited lifetime warranty policy anymore. They ended that a long time ago. But I suspect that when you went to Amazon, there were probably like 10,000 choices of replacement batteries, and I'll bet not a single damn one of them was branded Craftsman.
Yeah, exactly, Keith. There might have been literally 10,000 choices for the battery. So, you know, I did have some logic in my evaluation process and what I was looking for. So here's a couple things. One, you know, the batteries that I picked, these batteries, you can see they're pretty thick. They're much larger I want to say that the original Craftsman batteries were probably like 2 amp hours-ish, right? And these are 6. So it was the size of the battery, you know, having that longevity for projects. The fact that it had a dual charger, right? So if you look at this charger, it's got nice status lights and everything. That's really, really cool. I thought that was kind of nice that I could get a dual charger out of the deal instead of just a single charger. And I didn't want to risk that like these replacement batteries didn't work with my original Craftsman, right? Because you see that feedback sometimes that you buy, you know, an off-brand, not the original manufacturer battery, and then the charger doesn't work, or vice versa. You get a charger that's third-party and trying to use it with the original batteries, and they just don't sync up. So I just figured I'd avoid that. Plus, having a single charger versus a dual, now I can always know there's a battery, you know, out there and ready to go because I've got the dual charger. And then lastly, one thing I thought was really cool is these batteries actually have a status indicator light built right in. So you can actually, you know, as you're working, kind of get an idea of, you know, where you're at, you know, from that perspective. And then lastly, this setup had what I like to call the Goldilocks factor, in the fact that it was priced, you know, not too low and not too high.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I feel that way. I bet a lot of our viewers have had exactly the same emotion. This is part of the buying persona. If you see something that's too cheap, your alarm bells go off, right? That you immediately think, if I buy something that cheap, it's going to break like 2 days later. So yeah, you just assume it's a trap.
It's a trap!
Totally, Keith. So I've had this set now for going on right on 2 months. And I have to say, I've been impressed with, you know, the build quality, the quality of the charger, the quality of the batteries themselves. I love how much capacity the batteries have. And to be perfectly honest, I haven't done any task yet that has allowed me to completely drain one of these batteries. So I'm just really alternating back and forth between the two, so that you know, I don't wear one of them out from a charging perspective before the other. But I haven't had a chance to really, you know, stress it. I don't know what kind of project it would take to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there isn't too many things. It's a big fear. There aren't too many things that are worse than needing to swap to a second battery and it's not charged, right? I mean, it's a bit of a, I think that's part of the strategy why Ryobi, I think Ryobi kind of started it, but like a lot of brands do it now, where they just adopt this one battery fits all the tools. Like you can plug it into a power saw or a cordless drill or a blower or God knows what, all the things. But I almost wonder if that's kind of a cop-out for the fact that they don't have a good battery management system, a BMS system that allows you to have good battery life from the jump for a single battery that you're using, so you don't get exposed to this problem to begin with, right? And that is the worst. It's like adding insult to injury if you run out of battery life on a particular battery and then you realize, oh, I don't have a second, third, and fourth battery ready to go, fully charged. That's adding insult to injury.
Yeah, Keith, honestly, that's why when I was shopping for this, you know, replacement battery, I decided to find a solution that included the dual battery charger, so that, you know, we've got high capacity batteries in the first place. But if I need to swap, I don't have to worry about, you know, a second battery being ready to go. It would be all ready. And I was running into that towards the tail end of my OEM batteries, right? So their diminished capacity and a single charger oftentimes led me to, you know, I'd exhaust the battery sometimes as quickly as 5 minutes if it was something pretty heavy duty in terms of the workload. Go to swap batteries, and then that battery would last 5 minutes. And of course, I didn't get another new 5 minutes on the battery again because it was still charging. They were that poor, and that's what that finally pushed me over the edge to get replacement batteries for it.
All right, so speaking of charging, how long does it take to charge one of these big boys?
Big boy.
Please repeat.
Big boy.
Keith, you know, I don't really know how long it takes to charge one of the batteries, and part of me really doesn't care. So, because of the capacity of these batteries, and I haven't gone through one, right? And the fact that there's another battery on the charger, I just am struggling to come up with a scenario where I would go through, a battery that if I compare this to the OEM battery, I want to say it was around 2 amp hours, and I could get somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, depending on the workload I was putting against it, right? So it would definitely vary, but 45 minutes to an hour. And if this battery is 3 times that, right? So let's say that I can get, and actually they say 5 times more power out of it. But even if we go 3 times more capacity in terms of runtime, let's call it 3 hours. Each of these charging ports, they claim they give the charger 2 amps to charge each of the batteries. I'm just struggling to find a scenario where I'll go through a battery and then swap batteries, and then if I need to swap batteries again, if I'm doing that much work, that the battery wouldn't have charged by that point.
Okay, yeah, I think I see your point. It's not like you're a hardcore professional doing jobs on a daily basis where you need a continuous 3 to 6 hours of continuous usage. So I think this is a good match. I think probably a lot of people have the similar usage scenario as you would have, where it's not really necessary to have that much recharge capacity.
Precisely, Keith. So I don't really see the need to plan for an event that, quite frankly, isn't going to happen.
All right, let's talk likes and dislikes.
So Keith, I really like, again, the feature. I'm going to show it again. The button on the front for the status of where the battery is and charging. They seem to be, built well. And, this battery might be larger than the old one, but what I'm finding is, even with the larger battery, I think it's actually helped balance it out better even than the OEM battery. So I'm not minding the weight so much because the balance is good, and so that's kind of a big deal, right? To be able to add weight and yet not mess up the balance and actually make it just as comfortable to work with. And of course, with the larger capacity battery, not having those sudden you're drilling and then stop without warning issues, that's kind of a big deal. Some of that was the size of the battery, some of it was the degradation in the battery themselves, right, because of their age. And I don't know how old those batteries were, but they were very, very old.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought much about heavier being better, but balance can be just as important as actual weight. I take that back. I often tell my wife that heavier is better, but I hadn't actually thought about that from power tools. Exactly.
Keith, I actually love the dual charger. That was something I was intentionally looking for, and the side effect is it's taking up more room on my charging shelf. But again, something I kind of brought on myself and was looking for as a feature in the grand scheme of things. So it's really probably going to push me to the point that I have to expand my charging shelf. But I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Why am I not surprised that you actually have a shelf dedicated to charging? You have a charging shelf, as opposed to someone like me who just randomly looks like a rabid raccoon to find the next charging infrastructure near the outlet that I have at that particular moment in time. I'm not surprised.
Keith, we could fix that situation that you have going on where you have to go on a treasure hunt for the right battery at the right outlet. When I come up to Michigan, we could create you a charging shelf.
Oh, okay. I was actually thinking of getting one of those cheesy word art signs that says "Bless this mess," but I might actually hold you to that. That actually sounds like it could be a good idea.
Sounds like a plan, Keith. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we, maybe reserve the option of doing is coming back and visiting how these batteries hold up, because you never know if over time these are going to maintain a solid level of battery life. So that might be a topic worth revisiting somewhere down the road.
Yeah, And actually, that's what a battery management system is, a BMS. There's a lot of sophistication to these battery management systems. And I think it has to do with the architecture of the battery itself and the manufacturing quality. But yeah, that's a big difference in terms of like a cheap one that's going to fail or lose its state of health and its state of charge capacity very quickly versus like a good one that's going to last for a long time.
So, you know, for the $100 that it runs on Amazon, and I actually saw it, was on sale recently, so maybe it's even less. But, you know, the $100 for the 2 batteries, the charger, if I get a couple years out of it, I think I'm pretty good with, you know, with that deal. It keeps me from having to buy, you know, a several $100 new whole, you know, base kit with drill and saws and everything else. I mean, I've got a boatload of tools. So, you know, I'm good if I get a couple years out of these. We'll see how they do.
Yes. So as usual, we have affiliate links down below, not in the comments, but actually in the description of the video. So if you go where my fingers are telling you to go, you'll see that link to this ridiculously named Robot battery brand name link. Anyway, so if you're still here watching this video, it can't just be because you can't take your eyes off of me. It's because you're actually interested in this stuff. You're still here. It's amazing. So go ahead and click the like button.
And if you could take your eyes off of Keith for a moment, a brief one, right? This would be a great time to click that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed.
And the bell. Don't forget the bell. When you click the bell, it tells you next time you log into YouTube that like, whoa, Keith and Bruce did something. You gotta go check it out. That's what the bell does.
Well, for Bruce and Keith, thanks for joining us, and you'll see Keith and Bruce on the next episode of Dad's Talk Tech.